Welcome to Haunted Stories. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash that like. This helps me bring you more thrilling content every day. So gather around, dim the lights, and prepare to be captivated by these horror stories that will give you chills. First story, The Silent Room. Emily was thrilled when she found an affordable apartment in a historic mansion. The three-story building had character, its faded bricks and elegant architecture giving it an air of mystery. Emily's unit, on the second floor, was spacious and charming, except for one oddity, a locked room at the end of the hallway. The door was unremarkable, but its silence was deafening. Emily found herself unable to shake off the sense of unease that enveloped her every time she walked past. Days turned into weeks, and curiosity gnawed at Emily's mind. She asked the other tenants about the locked room, but no one seemed to know anything. Some warned her to stay away from it, whispering about strange noises and unsettling dreams. Emily's obsession grew, and one evening, armed with a set of lockpicks, she decided to uncover the room's secrets. The lock yielded easily, and Emily stepped into the room. Inside, everything was impeccably neat: a bed, a desk, and a chair, all covered in dust sheets. The windows were covered with heavy curtains, shutting out the sunlight. But what truly disturbed Emily was the silence. It was as though the room absorbed sound, leaving her with only her own breath echoing in her ears. She rushed out, heart pounding. Sleep became elusive. Emily's nights were filled with restless tossing and turning. Vivid dreams haunted her, of faces pressed against the curtains, of whispers that were just beyond comprehension. During the day, she became fixated on the room. She researched the history of the mansion, desperate to find any clue about the room's purpose. Nothing seemed to explain its unsettling nature. As the days passed, Emily's sanity wavered. She stopped going to work, consumed by her obsession. She removed the dust sheets, uncovering the furniture in the room. She rearranged the items, trying to make sense of their placement. She spent hours staring at the curtains, her mind convinced that they held the key to the room's silence. She recorded her thoughts in a journal, her handwriting becoming increasingly erratic. One night, as Emily sat on the bed, a whisper broke through the silence. It was faint, like a distant conversation carried by the wind. She strained to listen, her heart racing. The whispers grew louder, overlapping and weaving into a cacophony of voices. Emily clamped her hands over her ears, trying to block out the relentless onslaught of sound, but it was useless. The room was alive with the voices of those who had been silenced. Tears streaming down her face, Emily fled the room, slamming the door shut behind her. The mansion's other tenants were awakened by her screams. They found her huddled in the hallway, babbling incoherently. They took her to the hospital, where she was diagnosed with acute psychosis. Months later, Emily was released, her mental state stabilized with medication and therapy. She returned to the mansion one last time, accompanied by a friend. The locked room was empty, its curtains swaying gently in the breeze from the open window. The silence had returned, but Emily no longer felt its pull. With a heavy heart, she walked away from the mansion, leaving behind the room and its haunting secrets. Second story, The Disappearing Town. David had always been drawn to stories of the unusual and unexplained. When he heard whispers of a remote mountain town where the population was mysteriously dwindling, he saw it as the perfect opportunity for a gripping article. The town, nestled between towering peaks, had an eerie atmosphere that sent shivers down his spine as he drove in. As David spoke to the few remaining residents, he learned of the town's tragic history. Decades ago, A mine disaster had claimed the lives of many, leaving the town scarred and grieving. But what struck David as odd was the sense of unease that still lingered. The survivors, now elderly, spoke of a cursed artifact that had been discovered deep within the mine just before the disaster. The artifact was said to be a strange, ornate amulet, and those who had touched it had experienced a series of disturbing visions. The amulet was believed to have brought about the disaster, and the townspeople had buried it in an undisclosed location, hoping to seal away its malevolent power. Determined to uncover the truth, David delved into the history of the mine disaster. He pored over old newspapers and interviewed surviving family members. What he uncovered was a web of secrets and half-truths. It seemed that the amulet was not the cause of the disaster, but a symptom of a deeper darkness that had plagued the town for generations. The more David investigated, the more he realized that the town's population had been slowly declining ever since the disaster. Families had moved away, seeking solace and safety elsewhere. Those who remained spoke of strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, whispers in the wind, and shadowy figures seen out of the corner of the eye. One evening, as David explored the abandoned mine, he stumbled upon a hidden chamber. There, he found a small, dusty chest. Inside rested the amulet, its intricate design shimmering in the dim light. As he reached out to touch it, a sudden chill ran down his spine. Visions flooded his mind, a mine filled with panicked miners, an explosion that rocked the earth, and a wave of darkness consuming everything. David snapped back to reality, his heart racing. He knew he had to get the amulet out of the mine before its malevolent energy could wreak havoc once again. He carefully sealed it in a bag and made his way back to the town. But as he reached the town's edge, he noticed something unsettling. The houses that had been empty were now filled with life. Confused and disoriented, David realized that the town's population was inexplicably growing. The once deserted streets were now bustling with activity. As he approached the town center, he saw families laughing in the park and children playing. But their laughter sounded hollow, and their movements seemed robotic. David's unease deepened as he realized that the town was somehow absorbing the essence of those who had been lost. The amulet, cursed by the mine disaster, had become a conduit for the souls of the departed, binding them to the town. The more souls it absorbed, the larger the town grew, until it reached a tipping point where it began to draw in outsiders. With a heavy heart, David knew what he had to do. He returned to the mine and, after a treacherous journey, managed to toss the amulet into a deep chasm. As the cursed artifact disappeared from sight, the town's unnatural growth ceased. The population began to dwindle once again, as the stolen souls were released from their forced captivity. David left the town, his article unwritten. He couldn't bring himself to expose the town's dark secret to the world. Instead, he carried the weight of the story with him, a haunting reminder that some mysteries are better left buried in the shadows. Third story, The Haunting Echoes. The Johnson family had been searching for the perfect home for months when they stumbled upon a charming house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The 3-bedroom house with a white picket fence seemed like a dream come true. However, from the moment they moved in, they began to experience odd occurrences that left them questioning their decision. It started with faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls. At first, the family brushed it off as their imagination, but the sounds grew more distinct over time. The whispers sounded like hushed conversations, snippets of arguments and laughter that they couldn't quite make out. They wondered if it was just the sound of neighboring houses carrying through the walls, but something about the voices felt different, closer, more intimate. As the weeks went by, the whispers grew louder, sometimes transforming into frantic cries or anguished screams. The family's youngest daughter, Lily, began complaining about a new friend named Sarah who would visit her at night. Sarah, she claimed, had long, dark hair and wore a pale blue dress. The Johnsons assumed it was an imaginary friend, a product of Lily's active imagination. But then, during a neighborhood barbecue, their next-door neighbor mentioned in passing that the previous occupants of the house had a daughter named Sarah who had died tragically in a car accident years ago. The pieces began to fall into place, and the Johnsons realized that the echoes they were hearing were the remnants of the past, the conversations and emotions of the family that had lived there before. As the family delved deeper into the history of the house, they learned that Sarah's death had torn the previous family apart. The echoes seemed to be a replay of their conversations leading up to the accident, arguments, pleas for forgiveness, and tearful goodbyes. The Johnsons' curiosity turned into a determination to uncover the truth and, hopefully, help Sarah find peace. They consulted historians, sifted through old newspapers, and even managed to speak to the surviving members of the previous family. The pieces of the puzzle slowly came together, revealing a heartbreaking story of loss and regret. Sarah's presence, it seemed, was trapped in the house, reliving the events of her last days over and over again. Desperate to free Sarah's spirit, the Johnsons sought the help of a medium who specialized in communicating with the deceased. With the medium's guidance, they performed a ritual to create a channel of communication between the living and the echoes of the past. Slowly, they began to piece together Sarah's perspective, her fears and regrets that had tethered her to the house. Through their interactions with the echoes, the Johnsons learned that Sarah had been blamed for the accident, even though it wasn't her fault. Her family's grief had turned to anger, directing their pain at her. It was this unresolved conflict that had trapped her spirit within the house, unable to move on. With the medium's guidance, the Johnsons facilitated a heartfelt conversation between Sarah's spirit and the surviving members of her family. Tears were shed, apologies were exchanged, and forgiveness was granted. As the emotional closure unfolded, the echoes began to fade, one by one, until the house was enveloped in a peaceful silence. In the end, the Johnsons had not only uncovered the tragic history of their new home, but had also played a crucial role in healing a lingering wound from the past. The house, once filled with haunting echoes, became a place of solace and closure, a haven where Sarah's spirit could finally find rest. As the years passed, the Johnsons cherished their time in the house, grateful for the bond they had formed with Sarah's spirit and the lessons they had learned about empathy and forgiveness. And although the echoes of the past had faded, the memory of their experiences lingered on as a testament to the enduring power of connection, even across the boundaries of life and death. Thank you for joining us for the whole video. If you've enjoyed this eerie journey, show your support by hitting the subscribe button and giving that like button a hearty smash. It's your way of ensuring I keep bringing you free, thrilling content. Did this tale send chills down your spine? Let me know in the comments. Stay tuned for more spine-tingling narratives. Until next video.